I am Libby Slappy, member of the League of Women Voters, Lake County. I'd like to welcome all of you to our second legislative forum for the 2019 session of the Iowa Legislature. Today's forum is co-sponsored by the Cedar Rapids Civil Rights Commission, who have an information table at the back, and they are represented by Janet Abejo Parker and Brianna Gibson. The mission of the Civil Rights Commission is to secure for all individuals within the city of Cedar Rapids freedom from discrimination because of age, color, creed, disability, familial status, gender identity, marital status, national origin, race, religion, sex, or sexual orientation. Thank you for being with us today, Janet and Brianna. And to our legislators, thank you for being with us today. We did receive regrets from Senator Dan Zumba, who has a family situation to attend to. I would like you to note the cameras around the room. This forum is being recorded and streamed on behalf of Mediacom and ILON by Pro Video and recorded by Neighborhood Network News. Instructions on how to stream or see the forums are located on the League information table. If you like to follow League events, please like us on Facebook, and we will like you back. Information in the League table includes the 2019 directory for elected officials and the sign-up sheet if you'd like to be informed of upcoming League of Women Voters events. So moving on to the structure. Each legislator is given 1.5 minutes for opening remarks. Then legislators will respond to written questions from you, the members of the audience. Legislators will again have 1.5 minutes to respond. And distinguished elected officials, may I remind you to be attentive to our timers for the two League members in the front. And when the red stop sign goes up, we mean it. The forum will end at 11:45, so we've extended the amount of time for the forum, and we appreciate the extra time from all of you. So your assignment in the audience, silence your cell phones and your small children. And silence those phones now. If I hear your phone go off, you have to stay and clean up. I would ask that you remain quiet throughout the forum. Refrain from clapping until after all the legislators have made their closing statements. You are encouraged to submit questions for the legislators on the yellow papers provided. Questions must be addressed to all the legislators, not just to one in particular. If you have a question you'd like collected, raise your hand, and the League member will pick it up. If you need more paper, raise your hand. We just ask that you be legible and clear in your writing. I will read as many questions as time allows, and sometimes I will combine similar questions so we can cover an optimal number of topics. We may not get to all of the questions, and we're hopeful that the legislators will be able to stay for a few minutes following the forum so you can speak to them individually. So, are there any questions? If not, let us begin. Opening statements, we will start with Representative Bennett. You have 1.5 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you to all of you for coming out today to participate in our democracy. I'm State Representative Liz Bennett, serving House District 65 in Cedar Rapids. The session has been off to kind of a funky start just because of some of the weather issues that have affected us in the legislature, just as they've affected others. But we do have some things moving. A lot of my focus this year is focusing on women's health and equality for LGBTQ folks. I'm working on some bills this year. I've already filed a bill expanding access to contraception. I'm working to reduce the discrimination that LGBTQ students face in sex ed class to make that inclusive so that they have the information that they need to protect themselves. I'm also working to make sure that in Iowa code, we explicitly state that you cannot use a gay or trans panic offense, or defense for murder in the state of Iowa. And some other bills around consent. I'm writing a bill to require affirmative consent education in sex ed class, which I think is very important and probably something we should have started doing a long time ago, as well as several other bills centered around consent. So we're very busy in the legislature, and as well as watching out for everything else that I'm always watching out for, including education and respecting our workers and many other things. We're just very busy.
I'm Representative Art State from Northeast Cedar Rapids, retired educator now. On the committees, the Environmental Protection Committee, Natural Resources, ranking member on local government, and of course on the Education Committee. So I am appreciative of League of Women Voters for hosting these forums, giving you an opportunity to express your views and to ask questions. I also appreciate the polling that was done this morning. That's cool. It gives us a shot of where everybody is leaning. So I sure do appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to answering questions today.
Good morning, and can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear? Okay. Good morning, and thank you for being here. I am Tracy Eller, State Representative, House District 70, which is mostly northwest side of Cedar Rapids. I am on the Labor Committee, Education, Economic Growth, Local Government, and then Economic Development Budget Subcommittee. My focus has been mostly on early childhood, and I have a couple childcare related bills that I'm proposing that will you guys will see soon.
Does this one work? No.
You can take it out of the stand if that makes sense.
Good morning. My name is Rob Pogue. I'm State Senator from Senate District 33 in Southwest, Southeast, and Northeast Cedar Rapids. And thanks to the League of Women Voters and the Cedar Rapids Civil Rights Commission for sponsoring this morning's forum. Probably the dominant issue that I'm working on currently is addressing the proposal to change Iowa's judicial judge nominating process. And hopefully we'll get some more questions about that, because that's a very, very big issue affecting the independent third branch of government. I think some things have positive happened in Governor Reynolds' initial speech, which we didn't get a chance to talk about last month because of the weather. But she had some positive proposals for mental health, job training, restoration of voting rights, and criminal justice reform. And I think we should encourage those things. I was disappointed that the legislature already was unable to deliver on her request for school funding. And I'm also disappointed that she didn't propose anything. There doesn't seem to be anything happening on clean energy, clean water, and pre-disaster hazard mitigation. Those are some of my disappointments, and I look forward to hearing your questions.
My name is Louis Zumba. I represent House District 95, which is, for simplicity, rural areas of Lynn County and 4 townships in Buchanan. I've been busy this year. I'm on the Ag Committee on Natural Resources, Ways and Means. They keep me the busiest. Working on I'll be floor managing a bill for beginning farmer tax credit. I'm working on several natural resources bills. And then that first bill also with the Ways and Means. I'm still an advocate for I-Wills and getting mental health money through that type of funding. And I'm glad that we did get our school funding done in the first 30 days. So with that, I'll pass the mic on.
Senator Liz Mathis, Lynn County, smaller towns, Hiawatha, Marion, Robbins, Swatha, Cedar Rapids, Bertram, Ely, and Southern Lynn County. I serve on Human Resources and Ag Approps as the ranking members, and Commerce, Ag Policy, and Ethics, and I'm now on the new Children's Behavioral Health Board. So people say, what have you been doing? So the bills that I filed for our area include working with Stacy Walker on a Ban the Box bill, Also, Human Growth and Development Education and Dating Violence Prevention bill. Also, an Environmental Management Interim Study Committee. I've been working with Bev Hannon, who used to serve as the senator for our district, on the use of plastics. Workforce issues for women, including pay equity, family leave, child care assistance, and 50% gender equity on private boards. Also, organizing a state conference on aging for the whole state, obviously, with the Department of Health, with the Department of Aging, and Iowa Hospital Association. It will be held here at Mercer Medical Center. Managed care improvements, so an omnibus Medicaid bill, which I'm sure we'll talk about with some improvements to the Medicaid system. A school bus passing bill, K-Hale, we got it done. We're going to try to get that through. Also, a teacher recruitment and retention task force, and an external appeal process for managed care and gender diversity on boards of directors. I appealed that off as a separate bill.
I am Molly Donahue, and I am the House Representative for District 68. I'm happy to be here, and thank you all for being here, and to the League of Women Voters. I am on the Education Committee, as well as the Environmental Protections Committee, and State Government, which is kind of a catch-all committee, as well as my budget sub is the Human Services, which covers Medicaid and many of the bigger funds for what we do in Des Moines. I have been working on some subcommittees, as well as throwing in some bills that hopefully will get out in the next week for education. We are happy that we got the busing taken care of, Kate. And I know they're working on it, but we're done in our house, so hopefully they'll take care of it next. But we are disappointed in the school funding. It is more than it's been in the last 8 years, but it is not enough to move the schools forward. They are still lacking in many areas, and we lose programs and teachers when we are at this funding level. But we will continue to fight on for education, and that's one of the main reasons why I'm there. And then we will hopefully continue to make good choices for the rest of the education bills that come through. Thank you.
Good morning. I am State Representative Ashley Hinson, serving my second term representing House District 67. So I have part of Liz's district of Hiawatha, Robbins, Marion, and Bowman Woods kind of area of Cedar Rapids. My committee assignments this year, I'm on appropriations again, judiciary again. I picked up state government, so I'm serving there with Molly, Representative Donahue, pardon me, and Transportation Infrastructure Capitals Budget Subcommittee. I am also the chair of the Transportation Committee. I served on that committee last year and was named chair this year. So some of the big bills that will be coming through our committee this year, we are working on some language to clarify hit and runs. If you leave the scene of an accident, you shouldn't be able to get away with it if you hit and kill someone or hurt someone. And we've seen a couple of cases of that around the state where it's very clear we need to change some language. So I've worked a lot on that, tried to get it through last year, got it through subcommittee, and plan to run that through my committee this next week. Also working on some recommendations from the DOT on electric vehicles. Obviously, our current model for roads and bridges is based on the road use tax fund, and electric vehicles don't buy gas. So that presents an interesting challenge for us as policymakers to try to figure out how to make sure that our roads and bridges are funded at an appropriate level for the use that's being enacted on them. Also working on language for autonomous vehicles. We have a left lane law that's making its way through our committee, so if you're just hanging out in the left lane and impeding the flow of traffic, did I see a cheer back there? I think I did. So we're working on that, as well as on judiciary, working on some guardianship and conservatorship and dependent adult bills. So looking forward to hearing your questions today.
Representative Marlene Marquardt.
Good morning. Apologize for being tardy this morning a little bit. I'm Representative Kirsten Marquardt. I'm looking out in the crowd, and it's nice to see so many familiar faces. I really appreciate this event. We get to connect in, or it also, if somebody has an issue or question, they always seem to connect here as well. And I really would like to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity. And then also afterward, I know myself and the other legislators up here, please talk to us or email us. I know our information and our I believe the league already put out what our committees are. Mine are appropriations, economic growth, labor, And I'm the ranking member on the Economic Development Budget Sub. It seems, it may seem kind of like things are kind of going slow right now, but there's a lot of things happening in committees, subcommittees, full committees. That's where we're really at. There's some funnel dates that are coming up, which is sort of self-imposed. This is when we're done with all of the extra stuff. There are a few bills that I'm working on with some other legislators. There's some language on SAVE that I think we need to do better on. There is there's an unemployment bill that I think really needs some big fixes, or maybe we could just not do it at all. And then there was a couple other pieces too, and my time is done. Good morning, thanks for being here.
Okay, we will begin with questions. Our first question, we'll start with Representative Stade, and it is a question from the Cedar Rapids Civil Rights Commission. What are your thoughts on the Jesse Grow case and the future of transgender rights in Iowa?
Well, I'm hoping that as in the past, that we will continue to respect LGBT rights in the state of Iowa like we have. We've been a leader in the nation in doing that, and I think the legislation that's moving to prevent that, I think we need to stop. I hope that we'll continue on the route that Iowa's been on as a leader in this area. Oh, there's much more to say. Thank you.
Representative Marquardt.
I guess I didn't have much more to say either. Did Representative Bennett, can I yield you my time? Did you?
I'm pretty excited.
Sorry you have to be last, Representative Bennett.
Let's make her second.
No, come on.
Did you want to? Okay, we can go down the whole line. Okay, come on.
Representative Eller is next.
I too don't really have much more to say than what Representative Stade says. I think Representative Bennett will answer this one the best for us.
I actually, the name that was in the question, I apologize if it's been in the news. Sometimes we don't see the news. I'm not tracking what the name is, but I know that I was there when we added gender identity and sexual orientation to the Iowa Civil Rights Act, and I hope we continue to keep gender identity and sexual orientation in our Civil Rights Act.
I too would have to apologize if it was in the news recently. We probably are all in the same boat. We don't get a lot of time to watch TV. But everybody's created equal, so I can't say as I know much about this bill in particular. If there's I wish Representative Bennett could have done.
That's probably why. I am not familiar with the case either, but we have had several bills that have come through when Democrats were in the majority in the Senate. We had several bills that I moved into subcommittee on LGBTQ rights, and one was about conversion therapy and the ability for a child to make their own decisions about what their gender identity is, about how they want to live their lives, and trying to stop some of the terrible therapeutic ways, I guess, that some people feel that they can impose upon a child, and perhaps try to convince the parents to do so as well. And so we moved that bill in the Senate. The House did not take that up, but LGBTQ rights are human rights.
I, like most of us here on the panel, do not know of this specific case, but what I can tell you as an educator is that when students are not allowed to be who they are, that it causes issues not only in their learning, but in their mental health. And it is important for us to give them their dignity and allow them to be who they are. The other thing I have to say is that I ran to make sure that I protect the rights of all people, not some people. So that's why I'm here, is to make sure that everybody has their rights, regardless of who they are, what they believe in. It doesn't matter to me. That's their right.
I think if I remember reading in the paper, this is about the corrections officer. Is that right, Liz? Okay, yeah. So I know we have a great civil rights commission in Iowa where people who are wronged have a voice and have a chance to have their case heard. And so I think if anybody's listening today and you've experienced that in your workplace, know that there is a process for you to address that grievance and make sure that people who are not following the law and respecting your individual identity, we do have protections in place for you. So if you're watching and need any information on where to go for that information, I think any of us at this table would be happy to help connect you so that you could take the appropriate action. I think we do need to be, as a state, this is a workforce issue. That's the way I see this too, because if we're sending bad messages to people that they can't be welcome in their employment, I think that just works against everything we're trying to do to solve a lot of these workforce issues. So I think obviously that case will set the standard going forward, and I think we can all learn a lot from it, and the people involved in the case certainly did as well. So I think, Liz, now you can expound on that a little more. There you go.
Representative Bennett has 3 minutes. Representative Rennie Marquardt did her time.
Oh, gosh, okay. Well, first of all, I just want to thank everybody else who responded. I think what we saw here is a reflection of something that's very special about the state of Iowa, which is that we have a progressive history here. We believe in valuing people. And, even though a lot of times we have a long way to go on doing that for lots of folks that live here, I think we have a shared value that no matter who you are, you should be able to live here and fulfill your fullest potential. So what we have here that's particularly special for LGBTQ folks is that we protect people regardless of their sexual orientation or their gender identity in our civil rights code. And that's something that a lot of states out there are still catching up with. So Jessie Rowe is a person who worked in corrections, was a nurse, and is a transgender man, and was receiving harassment in the workplace. When you're receiving that type of harassment, that interferes with your basic right to support yourself, support your family. Just go to work and do your job. And so Jessie Rowe contested that, and the court upheld Jessie's right to live in their identity and go to work and do their thing. And that was an excellent decision and something that we should be very proud about for the state of Iowa. So I think that's, I could talk for a long time about this, but I think this is a win for everybody in the state of Iowa.
Our next question, we will begin with Representative Rennie Marquardt. It has to do with the restoration of voting rights. And there's quite a bit of verbiage here, so bear with me. So the governor currently has a proposal that no longer requires proof of payment for fees or restitution. And some legislators are seeking to add restitution as a requirement to restore voting rights. So this would mean that people with money could easily pay off their fees and vote, and people without money would not. So the question, do you favor restoring the vote without the requirement of fulfilling the financial debts?
Yes, I'm in favor of restoring people's rights to vote. Once they've served their time and they can prove that they can be citizens, it's a way that we can make people feel part of our community, active members, and anything we can do so that we can make sure that the recidivism rate continues to drop, that we can make people feel welcome in our communities, and give people a second chance that they deserve. And I believe that voting rights is a part of that. The second part of the question is, I err on the side of being fair. So I believe that regardless of your income level, and most people in there, after they serve their time, they do, financial security is a big barrier for them. And so I do believe that it's fair to treat people as equals, especially when voting is concerned. So not to look at how much is in their bank account, but to look at what they can provide and how they can become a part of our community. I don't know, I have 2 or 3 different times gone down with a constituent or a person who they sign up for, the sheriff's office has a payment plan to pay back your court fees and fines. And that is, you pay a certain percentage up front, and then you pay a certain amount, about $100 usually a month. And I know from the few people that I know and have cared for, or have been constituents of mine and have had me walk through that process with them, that's a very difficult one, but they want to do it, do what's right. Thank you.
I echo much of what Representative Running Marquardt said, and I am in favor of restoring voting rights. And I agree that they should be treated equal, so I'm in favor of restoring regardless if they have paid off their fees or not.
This is an important issue, and as I mentioned in my opening comments, Governor Reynolds called for the restoration of voting rights in her condition of the state speech, and I hope that is something the legislature will act on. When I first ran for office, I was uncertain on this issue, and so I talked to some people about it, and it was interesting. The very clear message from those who work in community corrections was restore rights, restore rights, restore rights, because not only is it the right thing to do, but they were very interested in it as a tool to help reconnect people, the reentry process, reconnect people to the community, and they said, what's it cost you? Right? You don't have to have a program, you don't have to build a building, you just restore the right and you help reconnect people, and they said anything you do to help reconnect people to the community is going to reduce recidivism. So I think it's a good thing to do. I believe that if you've served your time, the restoration of voting rights should not be conditioned on the payment of restitution. I think it is important. I will tell you, because it may not come up in a later question, we received a report on the justice systems budget that recidivism in Iowa has gone up again. It was 29.7% in 2014. Now up to 37.8%, over 400 more offenses being committed that send people back to prison a year than under the previous rate.
I believe this question is probably a little bigger than what was just posed. I have toured the reformatory in Anamosa, and during that tour we got to meet inmates that have been through the system and are now out have jobs and working in the public and doing very well. I think you have to look at, crimes are at different levels. So when it comes to, what about the victims? I think you have to look at that, whether it was a 3 OWI offense or it was a murder. I think there's things to look at there that weigh in here. I'm good with the payment plan type system that Representative Running Marquardt was talking about. But I think what the initial crime was is important, and I think we have to remember the victims in this and weigh that in our decision.
I'm in favor of restoring voting rights without the full restitution made, and here's why. Like Representative Running Marquardt said, there are already payment plans in place. So a person who's been convicted and released is still going to have to make those payments, regardless of if their voting rights are restored or not. It's still going to continue. That's what is right now. I think by knocking on a number of doors, there was one in particular in Marion, the mom, dad, and the kids drove up, they were getting out of the car, and the dad went into the house and said, come on, let's go do your homework. And the mom stood outside of the car, and I was talking to her, and I said, hey, I'd like to, ask you if you'll vote for me, and also, I don't see your husband on this list. And she said, he's a felon. And she said, the kids don't know. This was 20 years ago, and he has, he's tried as mightily as he can to engage with the community, and she said, we just don't talk about it, and he's very embarrassed about it. So not only that door, but then you start to realize why people are kind of talking around the issues, and sometimes they just have to come out and say, I can't vote. I have a felon record. I have a felony record. So I would like to restore voting rights, And on top of that, the ban the box bill would be a great accompaniment to that.
Thank you.
I definitely want to restore those rights. I actually have a neighbor who made a mistake at the age of 18, who came out and told me this fall that he was embarrassed to let me know that he couldn't vote for me. He would vote for me, but he couldn't. And he said point blank that he made a mistake at 18, and it's haunted him forevermore. He holds a job and does all right. He, is married, and his wife does very well at Rockwell, and their son does not know that he cannot vote. So that's hard on a family. It's hard on the person who may have made that mistake and paid back to society whatever it is that he needed to do. I also don't believe that you should be prevented from voting because you owe money. We need to look at, if you want these people to stay, as they say, out of jail with the recidivism, I can't even say it right. If we don't want them to return, we need to make sure that they are fully enveloped back into the community. They have to be allowed to get decent jobs. They have to be able to support themselves and their families, and they have to feel welcome in the community. As long as they are now doing what they're supposed to do, they should have all the rights that all the rest of us have.
I think a lot of my colleagues have said a lot of what I would agree with. One idea I had as we were just sitting here is maybe, since Representative Zumba mentioned the victims and how important they are, and we do not want them to feel like they're not getting justice, which for them, many of them, restitution is a part of that justice. I continue my work on a constitutional amendment to protect victims and making sure that that restitution is paid and it's constitutionally protected as a right for victims. But I wonder if maybe there would be a way where we could approach this where we could make a lot of people happy in this case, where we could restore the rights with I guess I would say if they owe money or not, but making sure that there's a check on there so that they are actually keeping up their end of the bargain and paying that restitution back. So are they meeting the terms of their payment plan, let's say, and then maybe there needs to be a check on that if it's not proceeding as, I'm just spitballing ideas here as we consider all things in the legislature, but I definitely think second chances are important. I'm also working on some liability shield language. We worked on it last year so that employers can feel more comfortable hiring employees without worry of a lawsuit against them for something that's completely unrelated to the job that person's doing. So looking forward to continuing the conversation, because I do think it is bigger than just this one issue in terms of getting people back into the community. So look forward to your ideas too. I've overwhelmingly received emails saying that we should restore the rights, but I think maybe we need to be looking at some of these other complicated issues within the bigger discussion.
Good morning.
Senator Taylor, welcome.
Thank you.
The question is, do you favor restoring voting rights to felons even if they have not fully paid their restitution?
Excellent, thank you. State Senator Todd Taylor, first of all, I apologize for being late. My son and I were in the parking lot dealing with a person who was apparently in distress, and we've got that reported to the authorities. And Representative Hinson brought me up to date with the question, and I thank you for repeating it. I would just say briefly that I appreciate the tone that the governor set on the second day about we should talk about restorative justice, her idea, doing it through the constitutional change and protecting victims' rights. I appreciate that tone because we've not heard that really before in many, many years. So restitution, if they're on payment plans, I think that counts towards it. That should be part of the bigger picture. Also, on restorative justice, the ban the box legislation, we could figure out ways to make that work so felons can get jobs. And then lastly, I will tell you a positive thing. We had a subcommittee, bipartisan in the Senate, House, or Democrats and Republicans voted to not eliminate someone's licensure if it was a felony, so that they would still have the ability to pay the restitution and make other amends. We're okay with the punishment, but we shouldn't over-punish, and we should make sure it makes sense. And so I think my bottom line is I'm very encouraged by the tone that I've seen by the governor that we should talk about these things and try to fix them. On the justice system, and we have 8,000 plus inmates in our system, and only about 800 are lifers. So at some point, all of the rest of them are going to get out. We need to assimilate them back into society with jobs, with skills to get jobs, et cetera. So voting rights is part of the very important civil responsibility.
All right, so I think that democracy should never be pay to play. And so that's number one. Number two, I would just echo a lot of the things that were set up here. One of the really important things to think about when we talk about reducing recidivism is that we have a lot of research and information on ways that we can do that. Making sure that once somebody has served their time, that we say, come on back in, to society, don't stay out there, come in, get a job, do the things that, you need to do. We have a lot of research on how to do that, and bringing people back in by restoring their rights once their time has been served is one way that we can do that. I think what's really important to think about when we're talking about victims and victims' rights and the concept of recidivism is that when we lower the recidivism rates, what we're also doing is lowering the number of victims that are becoming victims of crimes, right? So what I'm saying is that by bringing folks back into society, we're benefiting everyone.
I too am in favor of restoring the felons' voting rights, and I had asked that the governor issue an executive order to do that, because I think she can right now. But I applaud her efforts to see that the legislature passes legislation that makes it permanent. And I also appreciate all the thoughtful comments up here from both parties, and I think this is a bipartisan issue that will be addressed this year, hopefully. So I don't think that the recidivism will be changed by doing this, and I don't think we should be punishing felons any further. In reference to restitution, the punishment of withholding the right to vote, I don't understand how that would increase the restitution amounts. Those are sentences from the court already and are being pursued. I appreciate Representative Taylor's concerns about ban the box and other things that prevent former felons from getting jobs just because of their past. So I think we have ways to go on that, and in reference to that with our legislation as well, in order to make sure that there's not discrimination in that area. So I just think this is something that we're going to be able to accomplish this year, and I'm hopeful. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, the topic of judicial appointments, we will begin with Representative Eller. What is your position on the bill to change the way judges are appointed?
This is something that I'm still learning about, as it's not my area of expertise, and I've been trying to read up on it more as things have been introduced. From the way that I'm understanding it right now, I'm not in favor of it. We need to keep it how it is.
I'm on the subcommittee, and it's out of committee in the Senate. Senate File 237. I was opposed to that bill, and I think it is one of the biggest mistakes this legislature could make in 2019 is to pass this bill. So, in a minute and 15 seconds. 1962, Iowa voters created the system we've had for 57 years, where our nominating commissions, remember all the appointments are by the governor, but they appoint from a pool of people nominated by a commission that's created half by lawyers who are elected, Iowa lawyers who are elected by other Iowa lawyers, half by people appointed by the governor. And that system has worked. We are recognized nationally for having a fair, merit-based, impartial judiciary. That's important for every Iowan who shows up in front of a court, maybe because of a family law problem or a criminal problem or a business dispute or a probate matter. You want quality judges who are applying the law based on the facts.
I yield my time to
The
Senator.
proposal would take that away and replace it with all political appointees on the commission. And right now that would be 3/4 Republicans, and someday in the future it would be 3/4 Democrats. It's a real problem because it jeopardizes that. I also believe it is unconstitutional. Even if not unconstitutional, it should be submitted to the voters. And we really want Iowans to speak up for a fair, merit-based judge nominating process, which, by the way, results in a lot of judges that Republicans like. Remember Susan Christensen appointed last August by Governor Reynolds from Harlan to the Supreme Court. Well, if you have judges that people like, it's not the process that's the problem, and so this is really a solution in search of a problem.
Well, there's no final bill in the House, so I'd be talking about something that currently really doesn't exist. But I had 3 forums last weekend. It was brought up everyone. As I always try to do, I will vote the way that my district feels, but without a final bill to talk about. The only thing that I would add that Senator Hogue said is I do find it frustrating after finding out how few attorneys participate in the process. It's like 13%, is that correct?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, that's what I was told that by an attorney that it is
That not very many vote
on the
ballot?
yes. So that would be one thing that I would, say sticks out. But there's, like I said, don't know enough about a final bill to really make a judgment call.
I yielded my time to Senator Hogue because I agree with everything he says.
On this topic.
On this topic.
Ditto that. Just as Representative Zumbach said, we don't have anything in the House at this point in time. However, from what I'm receiving in my email box, they expect it to hit there, obviously. And everything I am hearing is that constituents don't want this. They want it to remain fair and impartial. And what you have to remember is, what happens when the minority party becomes the majority party. It can turn around and do the exact same thing. We just need to leave it the way it is, so all sides, it's just impartial.
So I'm on the Judiciary Committee in the House, so if it does come forward, it would be in the committee that I would be voting on it. One thing that I have done in the last week, because I have heard a lot of differing opinions on this as well. I've heard from people who want the changes and people who don't. So I've tried to do what I always do, which is do my due diligence on all of these issues. I went to a debate with a professor who's done a lot of research about all of these nominating procedures in other states, as well as the head of the Bar Association, which does have a lot of say in who these nominees are. So went and listened to both of them speak about the issue. Also this week I've talked with one of the judges here in Lynn County about it, and what I tasked him with doing, because this is an ongoing conversation, is coming back to, I wanted him to think about what, if anything, in this process does need changing. He said, okay, well, I will think about that and I will get back to you. So I do think that it's a conversation worth having. I'm not saying that I completely support any changes, but I think what we do need to do is at least always, like any process, talk about it, look for ways to improve it. And if it doesn't need improved, then we leave it as it is. But if there are efficiencies or improvements that can be made to make sure that our judges are high quality and we're getting quality applicants for those positions, then I think that's something that we need to be talking about going forward.
Currently, all resident lawyers in Iowa may participate in the process. So I'm not sure how many do, but they certainly all could, or more could. Our system is renowned throughout the country. It's independent, and this bill would dramatically and immediately change our system. And on the one hand, it sounds good. Oh, legislative leaders of both parties would make some proposals to the selection. I heard something in the discussions that really caught my attention, that if we were to do this, we will never get back to the system that is independent and well-respected. And so, again, this is not really broken, so we don't need to fix it. In other states, I know I travel sometimes in Illinois, see family, and they have judges running for office. So again, pay to play, and you don't want your judges running for office. Here we want them selected maybe from a group of people who are in the business, lawyers, and more could participate. Thank you.
So I also agree with Senator Hogue. And the way that, there are a couple things I want to talk about with this. First of all, for a long time, as a college student, I learned about different states and how they pick their judiciary, and how we have merit-based selection here in Iowa, and that's something that we should be very proud about. And the reason for that is because for the legitimacy of our judiciary, which is something that's really, really important in a democracy, we need to know that even if we don't agree with some of the decisions that people are making, we need to know that they have a history of making decisions based on the law and based on the facts. The way I think about it is that, I might have a neighbor who's a doctor. I might like that person very much. We might have the same politics, but I don't know whether they really keep up on the current research. I don't know what their history is or what their success rate in surgery is. So probably I do need some other doctors to tell me, now wait a second, you might like that guy, but we kind of know that you don't want to have him do surgery on you, right? So I think that's why it's really, really important that we do have experts in the field who are making the recommendations that then the governor can go ahead and approve.
Thank you, too. I believe we have an independent, impartial judicial nominating system already, and it's shielded from partisan politics. And so I appreciate what it is. I've been learning more and more about it because of this particular Senate file. I understand that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce says that it's the 9th most impartial in the entire country. So it's good that other states and others understand that as well. So I don't understand the need to change it right now. I think that it is a partisan attempt. So when Senate File 237 comes to the House, if it does, I'll be a no vote.
Thank you. Next item, I'm sorry, Representative Ronnie Marquardt, excuse me.
Thank you. If we're looking at this issue, why all of a sudden we've got this very impartial system, which I saw a few graphics on this. I'm a visual learner, and it showed that there was at least a third, or sometimes a majority of conservative judges that were on that filled our courts here in the state of Iowa. And so all of a sudden, why are we trying to interject politics into a system that is fair and is the envy of other states around the country? Why? And I believe, I know Representative State sort of put that out there a little bit, but there's politics behind this, of course, and it's because there have been some things that have come through the legislature that were unconstitutional. And the courts, even conservative judges, said, we understand, we're looking at this with logic and reason, and these are unconstitutional things, and so they have different decisions than what it looked like legislators did. And so there has been this, over the past few years, attack on our judiciary. And no other attack is larger than the one that we have before us today. And so I think we all need to remain strong and keep politics out of our judicial system. It begins with this bill, but it also begins to talk, it also is talking with your neighbors and your friends and your legislators about it too. So it's a communication, it's a communication we need to have with our community as well. So that's the only good thing I think that's happening, is talking about how fair and impartial we are currently. Thank you.
Our next topic has to do with guns, and it's a twofer. We will begin with Senator Hogue. Do you support removing the requirement for gun permits? And do you support arming teachers in Iowa's schools?
Well, let me do this. First of all, there is a bill in the Senate that would do away with Iowa's permit system. And I do think that is a mistake. By the way, they had that bill a year ago. It was on the committee agenda in the Judiciary Committee, and then the shooting in Parkland, Florida happened, and they pulled that bill off the committee agenda. But it is back. I think that one of the reasons Iowa has a fairly high degree, relatively compared to other states, we have a higher degree of firearm ownership, and we have a relatively lower degree, not zero by any means, but it's a lower degree of gun violence. One of the reasons is because we do have a good permit system, and that includes the acquisition permits. And I think it would be a step backwards for public safety to do that. In terms of arming teachers, I don't believe, unless I've missed it, and again, we're not all-knowing clairvoyant legislators, I haven't seen any proposals that are seriously moving forward to arm teachers in Iowa, and that is not something I have proposed.
Okay, two-part question. Support removing permits. There again, I'd look at my district for my guidance, as I always do. My personal feeling is you don't know who's carrying a gun anymore and who isn't in today's society. There could be a number of us that are. I'm not, but there could be. We don't know. I would look for my district through the form system to see. I don't really think this is probably going to get into the House and on the floor, but I don't know about that. So, arming teachers, I don't think that should be routine. I think if a teacher is well qualified and chooses to have his gun there, I don't know. I wish we didn't live in a society where that was even in the realm of thinking of it, but we do. So I certainly would not be for having them be the ultimate protection of the school. I don't think that's an answer. If they have a permit to carry and they so choose to do so, and they're qualified, possibly. I don't. I'd have to think on that for a long time and get feedback from my district. And quickly, as long as I got 15 seconds, I'm a Republican. Senator Hoag's a Democrat. We do, as the rest of the people in the House, we work together. And on the last issue, although it may not change either one of our mind, we come up with several questions that we're going to look into. We do work together on a lot of subjects, and I think it's helpful to do that.
We require a license to drive. We require a license to fish. I look at those things as possibly lesser than owning a gun. So I would not be in favor of removing requirements for permits. Not at all. Also, arming teachers for schools, there appears to be a more systemic way that we can address school safety than doing that. And if we are to that point, then we are lost. We are just lost. We do have a bill before us on where you could take a gun on school property. And there was some conversation around if someone does have a permit to carry and they're dropping their child off at school, do they have to take, and then they're in the school parking lot, do they have to take their gun out of their car before they go to the school to drop their child off? So there is some conversation around that. That's about as, a bill that has anything to do right now in the Senate with that. Although, let me reiterate, have to have a license to drive and a license to fish. So I think logically you would need a permit to carry.
Do I want to drop permits? Absolutely not. I think that there are so many reasons to have that common sense kind of gun law, starting with the violence against women or children with domestic abuse. We cannot just allow anybody to have a gun at any time. We need to kind of know who has them. I don't want to take guns away from anybody. I just don't want them to fall into the wrong hands. We know that there are criminals. They're going to get their hands on things. That doesn't mean that everyone in here should be packing a gun to protect yourself. As a school teacher, crazy to ask teachers to carry a gun. We've talked to different police officers in our drills, which are also horrible to have as an educator. We've talked to them, what would happen if a teacher was running through the hall trying to find the shooter with a gun in their hand, and they said, "We will shoot you." That is not going to help anybody. It's more dangerous. Where is that gun going to be during the school day? You can lock them up, but then how do you get it out in time to take care of or help anyway in a situation like that? I would assume that you would not be allowed to have the bullets in that gun while at school, because that would make it very dangerous. I taught behaviorally disordered children. what if they broke into my desk, they got that gun, now they have it? It's just silly to think that teachers or anybody in the school should be armed at any time. It's just not safe, it's not reasonable. So that's where I am.
I think the bigger discussion here is making sure also that any policy relating to guns, that people are properly background checked when they buy a gun. I think, we can talk all day about permitting, but if the process to make sure that people go through the proper background check to be able to buy a weapon isn't fulfilled, then that's another conversation we need to have entirely. But I think about arming teachers, I just did some checking real quick with some of our staff. Currently, it's set up so that school districts can make this decision on the local level, where if they choose to allow their teachers to carry weapons, that's up to the local school boards to make that decision. That said, I believe our staffer told me that a lot of districts who choose to do that have trouble getting insurance. So that would kind of go toward what Representative Donahue said. So I think, clearly there's another issue that's maybe an unintended consequence of allowing that to happen. So definitely that would be something that we as policymakers would have to work through if all of our locals came to us and said this is something we want to do around the state. But I'm just not hearing that request from any of the local school boards that I work with.
Question 1, no. Question 2, no.
Okay, that's it? Okay, he's done.
Okay. Number one, I'm trying really hard to use my polite words. So I'm just going to say no. Because I have good teachers who taught me to use my good words. Number two, I just have to say how ironic I find it that some of the very people who made very sure to tell us during the Chapter 20 debates on collective bargaining for public employees that teachers are not public safety employees. Teachers are not public safety employees, and therefore we're going to split them off and we're going to change their rights in the workplace, are now saying that, well, we should have teachers carry guns in schools. This is ridiculous. It is a can of worms for all of the reasons that have been articulated already, and I think it's terrible idea and ironic.
On number 1, no. On number 2, no. I've had enough of these gun lobby bills. I'm looking out here and I'm thinking that they would push us to be a completely armed society where every one of you in here would have a weapon of some kind, concealed or worn in the open, without any restrictions, without permits, without any background checks. We know that is a goal. We've seen bills like that, and we have bills in the legislature that would do that right now. So I've had enough. I think that one of the specific roles of government, the important one, is the public safety. And I think that responsible gun ownership and common sense gun legislation are important. So expanding the background checks, making sure that we have permits and licensing requirements for hidden weapons. It makes no sense to me. I was a public school teacher for more than 40 years, and to have me and all of my colleagues carrying guns in school is ridiculous. Someone mentioned this little analogy to me. She said, if someone was out on the playground and it was beating another student with a stick, would your remedy be to provide all of the other students with sticks? Thank you very much.
No and no are my answers. I had the fortunate experience of when I was in high school and college, I was working at Fit and Feather. It was over here on 3rd Avenue. They sold guns there, and I got such a great education and met such a wide array of different people from the area working there. It really was an amazing job. But one thing that I really did learn was that Iowa gun owners, the majority of them, they are for background checks. They are for, doing the right thing. And they do want to make sure they and their children and people get the training they need. And so I do believe that this is an extreme section of gun owners that are pushing this sort of agenda and pushing it forward. And I truly don't believe this is all because there are a large majority of people, many of us up here, who are gun owners ourselves. But, you know, we are responsible people with that. And so I think that where we're at right now is fair and reasonable. We need to maybe look at better securing some of the background checks. But all of this other foolishness that comes before us in the legislature and is creeping up is really from extreme groups and extreme people kind of on the fringes on this issue. And it does not speak to the majority of Iowans on Iowans who are gun owners. Thank you.
As mentioned already, this would absolutely set us backwards. I'm a definite no on the first one. The second one, I work in the Cedar Rapids Community School District. I don't want to work in a school where the teachers are going to need to be armed. And every teacher that I've talked to does not want to either. We don't want this. I'm a definite no on that as well.
Thank you. Our next topic is vaccinations. We will begin with Representative Zumba. What is your opinion on parents' rights to vaccinate their children?
Well, if you want, just my opinion is that they're your children, and ultimately, in a way, that would be your choice. However, this is a big however, your choice not to vaccinate affects everyone else's children that are there. And I think that prevails over your choice not to. And there are children out there that are actually, and I know one that's allergic to the base of the vaccine. It's like egg-based, or I might not get this quite right, but that child cannot be vaccinated currently. So it's very important for that family that the other children are. So this is, to me, a lot broader question than just one family's decision not to. It really encompasses everyone's children at school and the risk that they're giving to everyone else.
Science has proven that vaccinations work. They've worked all across the world. The eradication of polio, and we've seen that within our lifetime. Many health professionals have spoken up over the last month about this because of the outbreak in Washington State, the measles outbreak in Washington State. So we asked the Iowa Department of Public Health Director to come in and talk about several things, and we were able to ask him about the vaccination form that you have to fill out if you do not want your child to get a vaccination. So you can sign it for medical reasons, as Representative Zumba talked about, and you can also sign it for religious reasons. The number of forms has increased dramatically over the course of the last 5 years. And so we do have two bills in front of us. One is to say that your child in daycare does not have to be vaccinated. The other one is just to eliminate the form altogether. I am against both of those bills, primarily because of what pediatricians have told me, and the effects of the disease are far greater. We would have, if we would have outbreaks, it affects a lot of infants and a lot of children who would be in peril.
Going off of what Senator Mathis said, when you don't vaccinate your children and they're going to daycare or into the public schools, these are like petri dishes in there. I don't know how many of you have send your kids off to daycare or to school and they come home with every cold, every flu bug, everything that happens they get and they bring to you. This is one of those things that would occur if you have people who are not vaccinated. That is going to spread like wildfire through the schools and the daycares, which is what they've seen in Washington State. My sisters both live there with their children. It is dangerous, and we need to make sure that we do the best for the most, and so I am against not vaccinating students or children.
My boys are in public school, kindergarten and second grade, and I make sure that they're vaccinated so that they can do their best work and keep other kids healthy. I agree with Representative Donahue. I live with two petri dishes when they come home with a lot of crud, and I'm lucky I haven't been sick yet this year. But I think vaccinations do work. Senator Mathis mentioned the outbreak in Washington State, and it is heartbreaking to think that a simple vaccination could have prevented so many people from being sick and possibly dying. So I think that If you choose to go that route, then that's a choice, and then maybe as schools, we can start working on some options for kids who may be sick and can't come to school and expose other kids to those things. But I think parents need to keep their sick kids home, and we need to do our best to keep everyone healthy, and vaccinations are one way to do that.
On the parents' right to not vaccinate, I think that we need to balance that. So if they have bona fide religious or faith-based objections to that, we need to consider those. They can't just say they have that and then not participate. We've got to balance when we have the rights of the individual eclipsing the rights of others, so those are balancing acts. And medicine changes, so we've got to keep up to date with all these things. Years ago, I had a big case at the University of Iowa where they were mandating flu shots to everybody. I was against the mandate because they were going to tell folks that you could be fired if you didn't participate in the flu vaccination. So that's what the case was about, the mandate on you could lose your job for it. We can encourage it, and we should, but they have to have a bona fide, verifiable rationale to not participate, and they still had 86% voluntary compliance. So when they took the threat of termination off, their numbers were still very high. So that way it was balancing the rights of the individual if they had, like I say, bona fide rationale. That's how I think.
My dad had polio as a kid. My grandmother, who just turned 90, for the first time ever told me of this story, that as a kid growing up on the farm, she has a vivid memory of her older sister dying in front of her from diphtheria. If you're a history person, if you ever go to look at any of the older cemeteries, you'll see families and you'll see numerous little tombstones there. And that is because it used to be routine for families to lose many kids from what are now preventable diseases. We know that vaccines work. We always want to balance the rights of the individual, the rights of the whole. What really worries me about this, are situations where we have kids who literally cannot get the vaccines, and when people around them are not vaccinated, there's such risk for contracting these diseases that are preventable. I don't want us to go back to a time where it's just routine for people to describe losing siblings, losing children. That's not the direction we should go. So I would not support either of the proposals that are on the table.
Thank you. I'm not supporting the proposals either. I think we already have the medical and religious exemption. We don't need what's referred to as the philosophical exemption, because we believe it philosophically. So I think, once again, this is a public safety issue. We want to prevent our children from being exposed to others that are carrying disease. And the vaccines are nothing less than miraculous in stopping the spread of these things like measles and others. So I'm not in favor of this. I do want to point out, though, that in the recent past, there have been fears developed among some people that the vaccinations have caused other illnesses in their children. I understand that and am compassionate about that particular issue. So I think it's our responsibility, too, to make sure as best we can that our vaccinations are safe. I know that in 2008, I offered legislation for the Public Health Department in Iowa to offer an alternative vaccination that did not contain the mercury derivatives of thimerosal. So I think that's important too, and I know in the state of Iowa and even in our pharmacists, they do offer that alternative that doesn't have the preservatives in there. Those are added as a preservative. So if they're not there, the cost of the vaccines are higher. But I just want to make sure that we hear everybody's issues and concerns, and we have an obligation to make sure that our vaccinations are safe.
this is a public health crisis as well as a public safety issue. It's always interesting to me who sort of contacts you about what issues, and I've had a lot of medical professionals who don't necessarily contact me about any other, or have not ever, become politically active or, active within their, within sort of our legislative system or whatever, to approach me and talk to me about how important vaccines are in saving lives. And I believe the science behind that. I believe the science in vaccines. We do have a very, very small percentage, and it's very, very rare, where there is vaccine injury. And I think that the problem that we have had over the years is that when we do have some of those families, some of those parents who have had vaccine injury, we tend to try to push them aside or silence them, or say, well, your concerns aren't valid, or make them seem like they're crazy, fringe sort of over here. And I don't think that that's fair, because vaccine injury is a real thing, although it's very rare. We need to make sure that we, like Representative Art State just said before, make sure that our vaccines are safe. They are, for the most part, very safe. They're very much needed, but there is a small segment of our community and our state that have vaccine injury, and it's not necessarily a disease, or it's not something else they think was caused by it, but things that have happened. And I think we need to have a new approach with those folks, and saying, let's work together to make vaccines safer. Let's work together to make this public health issue come before us. Thank you.
As the owner of our early childhood program, I'm very familiar with the provisional certificate, the medical and religious exemptions. I have parents that come through that need to use those, and I support them the best I can. Something that I want to bring out, though, that I'm hearing from constituents and other child care programs, is if these were removed and people had free reign, they aren't going to accept these children anymore into their programs. Right now, they have to, because we can't discriminate against medical or religion, and they're already ready to not accept them. We already have a child care desert. So where are these families going to find care? So this can become an economic issue as well.
I don't know if there is actually much for me to add. I just want to say there's a difference between, first of all, I think people should get vaccinated. We have a lot more things that we vaccinate against today than we did, say, when I was in school. And I think we have to be somewhat sensitive to that. And it's also that making sure the timing and the safety of all the vaccines is right is a good idea. But, I mean, this outbreak on measles is just terrible, right? This totally avoidable. And I know people, see, this is where you can't, I don't think you can demonize people as anti-vaxxers, because then that shuts down the conversation and they do away with it. So what you need to do is say, okay, measles, let's get everybody vaccinated for measles. Let's make sure that measles vaccine is as safe as possible, done at the right time, but that we get it vaccinated for. There are other things that are being vaccinated against that maybe, anyway, just be a little sensitive on that discussion.
Thank you. Our next topic is the topic of abortion rights. We will begin with Senator Mathis. When a majority of Iowans believe abortion should be legal, why put the state through the costly process in terms of time and money to push for a constitutional amendment on abortion?
We have seen these bills come up repeatedly. So I agree, it is very costly, and it takes a lot of our time and effort to address some of the anti-abortion bills that come up each year. And it's an important issue for many people who are pro-life or pro-choice. So I welcome the discussion, but when you have an issue that you bring forward, that will ultimately be struck down because we have a federal law that came out of Roe v. Wade, that a woman has a right to choose. And so when the Democrats in the Senate had the majority, I was the chair of Human Resources, which is Health and Human Services, and several of these bills would come through my committee. We would assign subcommittees, and then they wouldn't meet about it. So there were maybe 6 to 8 bills per year that would come up. When we lost the majority and were in the minority, those bills did spring forward. And so along the lines of welcoming the
Senator
discussion,
Mathis may have my time.
along with welcoming the discussion around this issue, we also have to think about how this, and very controversial, how this is going to end. So when you have a standing federal law, how is this ultimately going to end in the courts? And there are groups, I won't call them out, but there are groups that advocate every single day for some of these laws to be passed. And they work very diligently, very hard on trying to explain their point of view. And I am always open to the conversation. I don't shut it out at all. I listen carefully, but I just don't agree. So I believe that women should have access to health care, that abortion is safe and legal, and that we should continue down the path of making sure that women have good reproductive health, so that primary care physicians will say to their female patients, they ask them one question: do you plan on having a baby in the next year? If the answer is yes, we should offer good prenatal care. If the answer is no, offer forms of birth control. The governor currently has a birth control bill that is rolling out, and it asks for a bill to be passed that pharmacists would be able to do over-the-counter birth control pills. I am fully supportive of that.
I agree the process of going through a constitutional amendment, no matter the topic, is expensive. But I also value Iowans' right to have a say on some of these very sensitive issues. We actually have, I think, in addition to the abortion question coming through this, and that is in the Senate right now, there are probably half a dozen constitutional amendments that are being proposed. And so obviously that's something that would have to make it through both chambers of the legislature, 2 general assemblies in a row. And I just think the odds of that happening, especially on an issue like this, are probably slim to none. So I think where we are right now, I know that bill's in the Senate. I think we need to let what we have done in the past few years work its way through the courts. I think that will be a big determining factor in how many people might support a constitutional amendment of this topic going forward.
I guess if part of the question is why are we spending so much time on the constitutional amendments, I mean, I guess we can't stop someone from introducing legislation or to make a proposal to the Constitution. We have those as rights out there, but things we need to watch out for is they want to change the law, and they want to change the Constitution, and they want to change the judges, and they want to change the judges' judicial nomination process. Now watch out for redistricting, because that's all part of a plan to change who's in authority. And basically, I don't think the government should have any say in a personal health care decision of a woman and her family. And so I guess the short answer to the question is we can't stop them from proposing these things. That's part of our process. I think it's not helpful to do things over and over and over again, but they can propose these things.
Thank you. So I believe that the right to privacy in healthcare and a woman's right to make her own healthcare decisions is a fundamental constitutional right. I do not believe it is appropriate to have the public vote on people's fundamental constitutional rights. So what we are seeing, though, is what we're seeing as part of a long game. There is an organized strategy that has been going on since when I was a kid, and probably before that. I grew up in a very conservative home that is fully engaged in the movement to make abortion illegal. So I'm very aware of what's going on with this. The reason we continue to see these bills is because people are hoping to continue to push things to the Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade. This is also part of the reason why we are seeing tampering with the judiciary right now. You know, Chuck Hurley from one of the most far-right organizations in the state even went to the subcommittee and called out equal rights for gay people and abortion rights as one of the things that they are upset about. So they are trying to stack the judiciary, and that's absolutely in play with the Supreme Court of the United States as well.
Ditto to Representative Bennett's comments. I also believe we're heading in the wrong direction. We should be preventing unwanted pregnancies. We should have sensible education in reference to access to family planning, access to birth control, and we should also have more access in rural Iowa for women's health issues, including prenatal and postnatal care. And this goes on to helping families with child care and on and on. We need to change this to actually helping families, helping them with their decisions. Thank you.
You know, because when I started off the forum, we talked about how bills are in the subcommittee process right now. All the bills that we've talked about, hopefully some of them will die, some of them will change, most of them will. You know that song, there's 99 ways to leave your lover. There's 99 ways to kill, to change, to add your input into a bill. And I think right now is a really good opportunity for all of you who are in here, and anybody who's watching on TV. Thank you, Robin Cash, and others who are videotaping today. I'm only saying that maybe they'll get me from a better angle. But you know, so there are a lot of sort of on the fringe bills, and some of those we brought up today. It's really frustrating for me because we have so many other really important issues that we need to be focusing on and not spending our energy or taxpayer dollars sort of with the same thing that keeps coming up over and over again, and it keeps being deemed unconstitutional to you know, tell a woman what she should or should not have conversations with their doctor in the doctor's office. So that's really incredibly frustrating for myself and others. But you know, I want to reduce the number of abortions that are in the state currently as well. And so I think that when we're having the conversation to sort of start again in that spot to say, what can we do to do that? And it is the, you know, prenatal health care, it is the health care access, it is birth control access, and all of those things. Because we want to attract and keep more people here in the state of Iowa, and I think that if we could just focus our work more on that area instead of all of these sort of fringe issues, then it would make our state a better place and more welcoming. Thank you.
And I echo much of what's been said. The money can be better spent on addressing a lot of our more critical issues like workforce development, the child care deserts, and expanding early ed.
I believe it's better to have decisions about reproduction made by a woman than government officials. That's my general belief. I really do think we should do a lot more working together on prevention. We had an interesting bill in subcommittee yesterday on adoption, and the question is whether adopted children who were adopted should, when they become adults, have access to the original birth certificates. And the data was that for every 100 birth mothers who give their kids up to adoption, 2% don't want those records made public. So how do you accommodate that 2% in trying to promote the advanced interests of adopted children when 98% of birth parents would be willing to allow to have their records? Anyway, that's a long way for me to say, you know, there are lots of things we should be working on, promoting adoption, prevention, prenatal care, health care, why do, access to affordable long-term birth control, and that's where I wish we were putting our energies.
I could echo parts of what everyone up here has said. Having said that, I think one thing you have to realize is that anyone there, any one of us can write a bill on absolutely anything. That doesn't mean that it's going anywhere. Like Ashley said, I'd find this hard to believe that it would make its full course to become reality. Having said that, just like I was last session, I'm still the father of 4 daughters, and I find it very difficult when I'm there that these are just issues that when they happen to a young family especially, I don't believe that I should be involved. I think that's between potential parent, their doctor, and that's where I stand.
Thank you. Our next topic is the topic of child care. We will begin with Representative Donahue. Working families using child care assistance for their child's care while parents work find their eligibility is lost if they accept a modest raise. What do you propose to do to reduce the child care cliff effect?
We need to remove the cliff. The only way our families can stand on their own 2 feet is to go out and work and hopefully gain a gainful employment that they can move up in and make more money. And when that happens and they no longer have the ability to receive funding to help them with childcare, it puts them right back in the same boat they were in before, where they can't afford it. So we need to remove that cliff and make it easier for parents to go ahead and accept those positions rather than decline them, and do better for their families themselves.
I think this is a question many of us have been searching for an answer to for years. I mean, it's not an easy solution to eliminate that cliff effect, and I know there have been a number of bills through the House well before my time in the House that were trying to find some solutions to this problem, because it is a challenge for employers too, because many times if, and I've had discussions with several of them about this, if they gave a raise that offset the benefits lost, it would price some of these employees out of the job that they're qualified to do, or the cap of the pay for that specific job. So it is a challenge. I think maybe it's a timing thing. I'm not sure how long it takes for somebody to get past that cliff being a problem, and I think that's the ultimate question, is figuring out if there's a way to have some grace period in there where the raise happens, maybe you have some time to figure things out before you lose that level of benefits. And I think that's the ultimate question. I think everybody here at this table, I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I think we're all trying to figure out what that magic formula is so that the people who need those benefits continue to receive them, and we also solve the problem of this ongoing dependence on those benefits as well.
I think the best solution is, it's a balancing act, because whenever we draw a line and say, here's the number, if you're over that, you lose it, we need to periodically review that and maybe adjust that, because we don't want a disincentive to have a wage increase to be the barrier from you to have childcare. And then childcare can help you sometimes, get or keep a job. So I think we need to move that line from time to time or review that. So that's a constant challenge that we have. But we should certainly want to promote good decisions in the families and child care access and higher wages. So that we should be involved in making sure that line isn't a barrier.
This is a huge issue, and something that I've looked at with other people. Part of the problem, I think, is just low wages overall. A lot of people are in a situation where, maybe they'll get a 50-cent or $1 raise, and over the course of a month, there is just no way that they can make up for, the cost of what they're losing. Childcare for an infant can be up to $900 a month. Now, if you guys have a job where I could get a $900 a month raise, let me know, because I still have student loans. So I think it's a complicated problem, because, it's not just the cost of childcare, but it's a situation where unless you're going to get such a huge raise, you really can stand a lot. So you kind of have to ask, like, how can even somebody even afford, to lose those benefits? So it's a really complicated problem. Now, I've heard that Representative Baylor is an expert in some of these issues and has a really some innovative ideas, so I'm going to cede the rest of my time to her.
Thank you. This is, the cliff effect has always been a problem. I have a bill in order to address it. So does Representative Lisa Heddens from Ames. So we each have bills in the House that are sitting in the committee. They have not been moved. So if you want to call and ask them to move those, I would appreciate it. So what that would do would expand the eligibility to 300% of poverty, and also the time that they're eligible. So that would help a lot of individuals in keeping their child care and being able to save a little money or get ahead, because as you know what happens in the cliff effect, as soon as you make a little bit extra funding, you lose the services like child care and other things. So we need to make sure that that's moved out so that people can maintain their eligibility and still make a living.
The cliff is real. It affects real Iowans. It affects people here in our community. The child care assistance program. I'm really proud of a piece of legislation that I passed with Senator Mathis, and it was a couple years ago, and I talked about it so much because it could really impact people. It allowed you to have work time and when you're going to school time to be included in the hours that made up the qualification to receive child care assistance in the state of Iowa. And that really helped people who were struggling through school, and they still wanted to work, of course. And so we didn't want to penalize people for working, so we passed that piece of legislation, which was really important to real people. I couldn't be more excited. Child care issues are very important, especially workforce issues. They're tied hand in hand. You can't attract, you can't keep people here if they can't afford child care and they don't have access to quality, affordable child care. And, I couldn't be more excited to have, this is her first year, Representative Tracy Eller here as a state legislator. She has a vast background in early childhood education. And I was going to give her my extra time, which is only going to be 15 seconds more. But there you go. Thank you.
Okay, as mentioned, I'm very familiar with this topic. I own early childhood program. I've used child care assistance myself as a young parent. And it's not just about expanding the eligibility. That definitely needs to be done. But when you're working with these families, they're not looking towards the future as far as budgeting and saving. They need some resources that can help teach them some budgeting skills. They need, as they're graduating off a system that has a copay system where they can pay a little bit for X amount of months and then pay a little bit moving towards the full rate. You can't just say, you go from paying $0 or your $3 copay a week, whatever it may be, to now all of a sudden you're paying that $900 a month. There's got to be some sort of graduated system. Another part of the issue is we also need to figure out how we can get more programs to accept the child care assistance rate so that families have a place to go. That's part of this issue as well, and we've got to increase the rates to do that. Representative Masher and I are working on some bills to address these things, so hopefully we can figure something out.
First of all, it is nice having Representative Eller in the legislature because it is something she has a great deal of expertise on, and that's very helpful. To me, let me give you a history lesson. I believe it was 2006. I'm campaigning. I knock on a door. I ask if there's what issues you'd like me to work on, and the woman looks at me and says, "Yeah, I just got a raise at work and I lost Hawkeye for my children." So the Hawkeye is the children's health care program we had, and at the time, it was a 200% of poverty cap, and she had gotten a raise at work and gone over the 200% of poverty cap, and she lost her health insurance for her kid. And we fixed that by going to 400% of poverty for eligibility for the Hawkeye program with the help of the federal government. So it is a real problem. It does affect real people, and we can address it. And we've just got to say, this is something we need to be committed to, and I hope the legislature will do that.
This subject isn't totally in my wheelhouse, but I'm glad Representative Ellert's there. I'm sure she'll be helpful and inform me. But one thing that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think I've talked to some United Way people, that one thing that we could do is have a ratcheting system so that if you get a raise, your total benefit isn't taken away. It's ratcheted together until a certain point where you'd be enough money that you wouldn't need the assistance anymore. It would take a lot of management. I understand that, a lot of oversight. But to me, that system would make sense because even though you're still giving assistance, it's at a lesser rate. And so eventually they'll go off and it would be, at the end, you'd be paying less assistance in a whole. I think that type of thing makes sense. I don't know if that would work out.
That's kind of what we're talking about, yeah.
Okay, so it would work out with what Representative Ellen's working in, and I would be supportive of that type of a system.
I think we've made some great strides in child care assistance, so we have a quality rating system now, and we have increased some of the reimbursement to centers. The problem still exists that this reimbursement might not be enough for some centers, that we have child care center deserts, and parents are driving miles and miles to drop their children off and then have to drive miles and miles to work and then are not making very much. And it, some parents say, why am I doing this, and then it cuts their income. So, there are a number of different problems with this, but we have 3 bills right now in the Senate, one written by Senator Zahn, one written by a number of Democrats, and then one that I have, it's called Women in the Workforce Issues. And basically, the section on child care says, current law provides that a family with an income of more than 100%, but not more than 145% of the federal poverty level, whose family members are working at least 28 hours a week, which this is what Representative Kirsten Running Marquardt and I put together, 28 hours a week, or are participating in an approved training program or educational program, are eligible to be placed on a wait list for state child care assistance. This bill, this new bill, would change the cap on a family's income to 185%. So what you've heard from other legislators of the federal poverty level, and it directs DHS to amend their rules to do that. So, one small thing, baby steps, no pun intended for baby steps.
Okay, I am being mindful of the clock. I told you we would finish at 11:45. So I want to take this opportunity to thank all the legislators who are with us today, to thank all of you in the audience for your participation in the forum. I'd also like to thank Heidi Tudor and her team here at Mercy Medical Center for their help with arrangements and for the use of this facility. Those of you who participated in our DOT placement as you came in, you'll be interested to know the top 4 issues of biggest concern to you. Number 1, 59 people disagreed with the notion that a person should be able to buy and carry a gun without a permit. 1 person agreed. 57 people agreed that the judicial nominating process should remain the same and operate the way it has since 1962. 1 person disagreed. 44 people disagreed that Medicaid should remain privatized in Iowa. No one agreed with that. And number 4, the IVERS program for Iowa State employees should continue to operate the same way it has in the past. 43 people agreed with that, and no one disagreed. Our next legislative forum is March the 16th at 10 at a different location, the Kirkwood Community College Regional Center on Boyson Road in Hiawatha. Senator Mathis, I believe that.
Yes.
So, I'm going to give each legislator 20 seconds for a close.
20
seconds.
Good luck,
everybody. And we will start with Representative Hinson.
starting? Me? Oh, shoot, sorry, okay. All right, couple of priorities for me in the next couple of weeks. Representative Bennett and I are working on a bill that you probably have seen in the news, female genital mutilation. Not a pleasant topic to talk about, but we are working through solutions because that absolutely needs to change. I filed a bill for reasonable accommodations for pregnant women in the workplace because we want those women to be comfortable, but we also want them working. And then transparency, any bills to deal with transparency, I think that's important for your tax dollars. Go.
Having arrived late, I know we didn't talk about my committees. I'm on Appropriations, Labor and Business Relations, I'm the ranking member, State Government, Transportation, and Justice Systems Appropriations. Senator Hogue was gracious enough to have me be the representative of the Judicial Justice System budget to the full approps, and I haven't had a chance to tell my colleagues this, but we did have a resignation from Senator Jeff Danielson in Cedar Falls, and our leader is named me ranking member of Transportation now as well. So I'm looking forward to this new challenge. I've been in the Senate for 4 weeks, and it's very exciting.
All right, so I just want to also thank everybody for coming out. It's really important for us to be able to hear from our constituents what's on people's minds, how you feel about things, so that we can take action in the legislature. Looking forward to continuing to work with Ashley Hinson, Representative Ashley Hinson, on the best evidence-based way that we can support communities in ending female genital mutilation or female genital cutting. I'm going to be continuing to work on my efforts to expand contraceptive access, respect LGBTQ kids in their healthcare decisions, and I'm also working on a bill brought to me by a constituent to make sure that when people who have disabilities and move to this state, apparently people are having trouble getting their parking permits switched over, so I'm working on ways to make that easier for people as well.
I too wanted to thank League of Women Voters and for all of you participating in democracy, and thank you for the range of questions this morning. Very good questions. We appreciated that you're following all of these issues. And today I also want to thank all my colleagues up here too, because I don't know if you noticed all of the collaboration that's going on and the listening to issues from one another, and I feel that's been good this year, and I hope that that continues.
You know, appreciation for all of you who on Saturday mornings, there's so many other things that you could be doing right now, and you've come to listen to us speak, so thank you very much. Again, it's an honor for me to serve with people up here. We come from many different backgrounds and have very different viewpoints on things, but at the end of the day, a lot of us, we're able to get past that, sit down and talk and work through some issues. There's a couple of different things dealing with workforce development. I took a tour of a South Dakota prison last weekend, and that was, or 2 weekends ago, looking at a workforce training program, building homes, very small, affordable homes, and having prisoners learn those trades. And that's something I'm looking forward to. The program's going to begin in May. And there's also, that's my time is done. Thank you very much for today. Hope we see you in March.
Thank you again, everybody, for coming, and thank you, League of Women Voters, for hosting these events. As the newbie, I really learned a lot. I'm sorry, I can't always answer the questions, but often I hear topics that I'm not hearing when I'm at the Capitol or from my constituents, so I really appreciate the learning opportunity. So keep the questions coming.
Hey, everybody, have a good month.
That's the shortest route ever.
Thank you for having us. Like Art said, we actually do work quite well together, many of us. I appreciate them at the Capitol. I appreciate being representative for House District 95. And I don't mean to take off early, but my third daughter is a first-year teacher, and she's doing volleyball, coaching volleyball, and I'd like to see how well that works out. So I am going to take off as soon as we're done.
She'll get him as a referee, I think, probably. Thank you so much, everybody. It just proves how active listeners you are, and we really appreciate that. Senator Donahue and I will be having, Representative Donahue and I will be having a listening post in Ely on March 2nd at 9:30 in City Hall. And then Representative Hinson and I will be having a listening post in Hiawatha on March 8th. It's a Friday from noon to 1 at the public library, so please attend. And no Medicaid questions today. I'm the Medicaid mama. So if you want to look at the bill that we filed, it's
Got one right here for you.
Senate File 156. Please look at it and let me know what you think. Thanks.
Representative Donahue, you have the closing statement.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. I have enjoyed my first 5 weeks, and thank you for sending me there. I have a lot to learn, as Representative Ellert said she is also doing, but I want you to know that what I have learned there is that, 88% of the things that we are doing in the House are bipartisan. We do have our issues with the other 12%, and they seem to be the big issues, but it's worth the discussion back and forth with one another, and I hope that the discussions actually remain open and transparent, because it does matter that everybody get to have their voice heard. Thank you again for being here. Thank you, League of Women Voters, and everybody have a safe travel home.
Now's your chance.